Now, so how did Apple build one of the world's greatest brands? Great, relentless, focused leadership, what I call the Jobs factor. The guy was a maniac. He just would, because we had a lot of creatives that would come back sometimes in tears saying, well, Steve didn't like it. Well, try again, you know. He pushed people to the max, and they did their best work. And inevitably, they came back with work that just blew your socks off. It was always just a tad above what other people expected. Insanely great products that deliver on the brand promise. Let's not forget for a moment the great engineering technology. When I talk about marketing, sometimes I forget about the engineering, about the technology. And these are some of the greatest products the world's ever seen. Clear differentiation from the competition, not only in the products, not only in the user interface or the user experience, but every aspect of the marketing is different than anything else you see out there. You can put your, we used to say at Apple, if you can put your finger over the Apple logo and still recognize it as a good Apple ad, then we're doing the right thing. Brilliant creative folks who fully integrated all the messaging. They understood what we call integrated marketing communications. That was the discipline of Apple. So if you did an iPod spot and you had Bono in there and somebody jumping up and down with the white earplugs, it had to be in everything you did, to the point you bored yourself to death. Creative that elicits emotion and makes people think, feel, and ultimately react. And that's what builds that great brand personality and that incredible brand loyalty. Very few companies have the brand loyalty. People talk a lot about, you know, social marketing and all this stuff. If you don't have great products and you don't have people totally into what you're doing, and you don't build great brand loyalty, it's all for naught. It doesn't really matter. Because you have to have the products, you have to have the culture that draws people in. Consistency through the years, with the exception of Steve's exile into the dark place. And I'd have to say, consistency is one of the keys. That great creative has been consistent. And a good example of people say, well, money can buy anything, with lots of marketing dollars you can be successful. How many remember the recent gubernatorial campaign here in California, Meg Whitman? Right? The more she spent, the more her poll numbers dropped precipitously. So it's like I used to tell my friend, I had a friend at a company called Tektronix, Del Yoka, and his company was, I went into his company, I talked to his people and stuff, and he asked for some marketing advice. And the company was the most fragmented company I'd ever been to. In one department, test and measurement, I think they had like a $25, $30 million budget. He had something like 20 brand managers, each with their own ad agency. So you can imagine the creative that came out of this mess. It was like, it was a perfect example of the balkanization of a brand. So Del said to me, what do you think we should do? And I said, you should fire all your product and brand guys. You should fire all your agencies and stop advertising immediately, and your sales will go up. Don't spend any more money on advertising until you figure this thing out. And that's absolutely true. You have to be consistent, you have to be highly disciplined, you have to manage the brand. The fact that most high-tech competitors are far less competent and capable of replicating Apple's marketing makes Apple look even better. I can't think of another company out there that's even close. There's Apple and there's everybody else is kind of, Apple, this is the most important thing from my perspective as an anthropologist. Apple always limited the number of MBAs and high-level creative meetings. You don't want those people in there. Keep them by their spreadsheets, keep them happy, give them lots of coffee and stuff, but don't let them in the creative meeting. They'll kill anything. I hope I didn't offend anybody. So, brand loyalty defined. Here you have the guy. This is our store. This is a picture of a store in Los Gatos. You have the guy after his death. You had people putting candles out there. My God, it was like you'd think the president of the country died. It was the most amazing thing. But it's again that type of loyalty, that type of connection to the company. People felt part of this company, and the founder and the CEO was a celebrity. Now I have some ideas that I wanted to share with you. Look at things to come. Now that top car up there, I came up with this concept, and I have to go over and present it to Apple. This is one of my ideas, where you do a private label Mercedes. And I got this idea when I was driving outside of Philadelphia because it was so confusing. And I had my GPS open to my iPad because I can't see a phone when I'm driving. I had my iPad functioning as an iPod. I had my computer open because I couldn't figure out where the hell the hotel was. All this is going on, and the inside of my car kind of looked like this. So I said, why not have the car designed to accommodate all of these devices, whether it be GPS and you know, my personal locator for my wife in case I get lost or kidnapped, even worse. But it's I call it the ultimate driving, not machine, the ultimate driving experience. And there's more. For those people who don't have the big bucks to buy a Mercedes, I came up with this concept, which is kind of like the Apple Volkswagen. It gets 500 miles to the gallon. It's a rough idea between Mercedes-Benz and Apple, but it's a cheaper version. This is my favorite, because I think there's no reason why Apple can't have its own plane. And this could be launched within a matter of years. Now, the last ideas that I think I need to go back to the drawing board on is the upper left, the eye toilet, I don't think has traction. Although I do like the color and the design. And then, of course, the eye soldier, not so good. But the eye woman has potential. I just don't know what to do with it. I think she looks too much like a cyborg. And I think we have to go back to design and figure it out. Apple, I believe, probably has a product roadmap going on 25, maybe 30 years. And they've always attracted the kinds of engineers that were, hell-bent on inventing the future and just working up product ideas. I think they'll be incredibly successful in the next 5 years. I think they'll expand into other consumer electronic devices. I think their market share will grow. I think you'll see a really viable Apple TV. I mean, something beyond belief. I think it'll bring about more and more of this so-called digital convergence. I mean, their baseline DNA is basically the simplest way to have an interface, whether it be a mouse or a voice interface, coupled with object-oriented programming. I mean, from the first days that Steve walked in, the first time he walked into Xerox Star and saw the future, that's what they've been working on. And I think there are ideas in the lab right now, and I have no reason to doubt things are in the works, but I really believe they're already inventing the future, or they'll continue to invent the future and be very successful. The thing that differentiates them is that a retail store, great products, great franchise, a great brand. Yeah?
Jim McGough, CEO of Summitt. Bill, actually I was your client at Audi back in 1990.
You're our client for CCS?
Yes.
Good man.
CEO of a technology company. Do you have a point of view on should technology companies co-create their brands with their community, or should they be brand managers and keep a really tight integrated messaging strategy?
Okay, I think the potential, because Apple's a unique company, exists for them to do something like a Michael Jordan Nike, develop a product which is co-branded. Is that the question you're asking? Yeah, I think the potential's there for them to sit down with a company like Audi and develop a completely revolutionary interface for an automobile and co-brand it. I think that potential's there. And I think they have the cachet as the world's leading brand to be able to accomplish that. Now, whether or not they want to do something like that, it's beyond me. But if I was in a position of power at Apple, I would certainly look at options like that or opportunities like that.
Okay, one more question. We're going to take it. Bill will promise to stay here and hang out.
What do you think of Google and the Droid, and do you see some similarities maybe with what happened back in the 80s with Microsoft and Apple, and the fact that Microsoft embraced other manufacturers, and in effect, the Droid obviously is doing the same thing versus iPhone in the smartphone market?
I think it's going to give them some lift initially, but, and again, maybe market share might drop for Apple, but certainly margins will drop for Apple. And I think in the long-term analysis, I think that's the best possible place to be. Because I think if prices fall too sharply, too precipitously with something like the Droid, and Apple has to come down to match that. Given a parity situation between a Droid and an iPhone, what are you going to choose? When we talk about parity, I mean in terms of pricing and whatnot. But Apple's always been the premium price product, and that's part of the elitist nature of Apple. It's like saying, I remember we did a lot of business with Levi Strauss. I'll give you an example. And Levi Strauss, in terms of premium pricing, Levi Strauss wanted to do a website with CKS, and they came in and they said, we want to do an international website, we want to affect all of our different markets. And they said, well, we have one problem. And I said, what's the problem? He said, well, for example, a pair of 501 jeans in America is like 35 bucks. You can get them here. But in France, they're like $240. And I said, what's wrong with the French? How could they not figure this out? He said, well, we're a premium priced product. They were like a Jordache jeans or something. It's a fashion statement. I go, that's the most retarded thing I've ever heard. But you know, that's the reality. You have products that can be actually 3, 4, 5x in one country as you go to other countries. So, but Apple has been one of the few companies around that can support and sustain long-term premium pricing.
Okay, so we have to move to the social break, but you're going to stay here in case anybody wants to come visit with Bill. I just want to mention that I think that Google is the new Microsoft. They are boring, and anytime you have a company that just goes around imitating, you know, everything in the market, that's what Microsoft did. And maybe in 10 years, Google Plus will be something, but you know, they're the new enemy.
I think they'll dominate market share in places like Maine.
But anyway, that's my personal opinion. Okay, we have a social networking break. Our hashtag is #always_on. If you're tweeting, we'll see you back in about 15 minutes. Thank you, Bill Cleary. All right.